Thomas Macaulay's speech to lift political restrictions on the Jewish people. My honourable friend, the member for the University of Oxford, began his speech by declaring that he has no intention of calling in question the principles of religious liberty. He utterly disclaims persecution, that is to say, persecution as defined by himself. It would, in his opinion, be persecution to hang a Jew, or to flay him, or to draw his teeth, or to imprison him, or to fine him. For every man who conducts himself peaceably has a right to his life and his limbs, to his personal liberty and his property. But it is not persecution, says my honourable friend, to exclude any individual or any class from office, for nobody has a right to office. In every country, official appointments must be subject to such regulations as the supreme authority may choose to make, nor can any such regulations be reasonably complained or by any member of the society as unjust. He who obtains an office obtains it, not as a matter of right, but as a matter of favor. He who does not obtain an office is not wronged. He is only in that situation in which the vast majority of every community must necessarily be. There are in the United Kingdom 25 million Christians without places, and, if they do not complain, why should 25,000 Jews complain of being in the same case? Now, surely, my honourable friend cannot have considered to what conclusions his reasoning leads. Those conclusions are so monstrous that he would, I am certain, shrink from them. Does he really mean that it would not be wrong in the legislature to enact that no man should be a judge unless he weighed 12 stone, or that no man should sit in Parliament unless he were 6 feet high? And would he think himself sufficiently answered by being told, in his own words, that the appointment to office is a mere matter of favor, and that to exclude an individual or a class from office is no injury? My honourable friend has appealed to us as Christians. Let me, then, ask him how he understands that great commandment which comprises the law and its prophets. Can we be said to do unto others as we would that they should do unto us, if we wantonly inflict on them even the smallest pain? As Christians, surely we are bound to consider first whether, by excluding the Jews from all public trust, we give them pain, and secondly, whether it be necessary to give them that pain in order to avert some greater evil. That by excluding them from public trust we inflict pain on them, my honourable friend will not dispute. As a Christian, therefore, he is bound to relieve them from that pain, unless he can show, what I am sure he has not yet shown, that it is necessary to the general good that they should continue to suffer. But where, he says, are you to stop? If once you admit into the House of Commons people who deny the authority of the Gospels, will you let in a Muslim? Will you let in a Parsi? Will you let in a Hindu who worships a lump of stone with 7 heads? I will answer my honourable friend's question by another. Where does he mean to stop? Is he ready to roast unbelievers at slow fires? If not, let him tell us why, and I will engage to prove that his reason is just as decisive against the intolerance which he thinks a duty as against the intolerance which he thinks a crime. Once admit that we are bound to inflict pain on a man because he is not of our religion, and where are you to stop? Why stop at the point fixed by my honourable friend rather than at the point fixed by the honourable member for Oldham, who would make the Jews incapable of holding land? And why stop at the fixed point by the honourable member for Oldham rather than at the point which would have been fixed by a Spanish inquisitor of the 16th century? When once you enter on a course of persecution, I defy you to find any reason for making a halt till you have reached the extreme point. When my honourable friend tells us that he will allow the Jews to possess property to any amount, but that he will not allow them to possess the smallest political power, he holds contradictory language. Property is power. The honourable member for Oldham reasons better than my honourable friend. The honourable member for Oldham sees very clearly that it is impossible to deprive a man of political power if you suffer him to be the proprietor of half a county, and therefore very consistently proposes to confiscate the landed estates of the Jews. But even the honourable member for Oldham does not go far enough. He has not proposed to confiscate the personal property of the Jews. Yet it is perfectly certain that any Jew who has 1,000,000 may easily make himself very important in the state. By such steps, we pass from official power to landed property, and from landed property to personal property, and from property to liberty, and from liberty to life. My honorable friend should either persecute to some purpose or not persecute at all. He dislikes the word persecution, I know. He will not admit that the Jews are persecuted. And yet I am confident that he would rather be sent to the King's Bench prison for 3 months, or be fined £100, than be subject to the disabilities under which the Jews lie. How can he, then, say to no impose such disabilities is not persecution, and that to fine and imprison is persecution? All his reasoning consists in drawing arbitrary lines. What he does not wish to inflict he calls persecution. What he does wish to inflict he will not call persecution. What he takes from the Jews he calls political power. What he is too good-natured to take from the Jews he will not call political power. The Jew must not sit in Parliament, but he may be the proprietor for all the £10 houses in a borough. He may have more £50 tenants than any peer in the kingdom. He may give the voters treats to please their palates, and hire bands of gypsies to break their heads as if he were a Christian and a marquis. All the rest of the system is of a piece. The Jew may be a juryman, but not a judge. He may decide issues of fact, but not issues of law. He may give £100,000 damages, but he may not, in the most trivial case, grant a new trial. He may rule the money market. He may influence the exchanges. He may be summoned to congresses of emperors and kings. Great potentates, instead of negotiating alone with him by tying him in a chair and pulling out his grinders, may treat with him as a great potentate, and may postpone the declaring of war or the signaling of a treaty till they have conferred with him. All this is as it should be, but he must not be a privy councillor. He must not be called right honorable, for that is political power. And who is it that we are trying to cheat in this way? Even omniscience. Yes, sir, we have been gravely told that the Jews are under the divine displeasure, and that if we give them political power, God will visit us in judgment. Do we, then, think that God cannot distinguish between the substance and form? Does not he know that, while we withhold from the Jews the semblance and name of political power, we suffer them to possess the substance? The plain truth is that my honorable friend is drawn in one direction by his opinions, and in a directly opposite direction by his excellent heart. He halts between two opinions. He tries to make a compromise between principles which admit of no compromise. He goes a certain way in intolerance. Then he stops, without being able to give a reason for stopping. But I know the reason. It is his humanity. Those who formerly dragged the Jew at a horse's tail and singed his beard with blazing furze bushes were much worse men than my honorable friend, but they were more consistent than he. But, says my honorable friend, it has been prophesied that the Jews are to be wanderers on the face of the earth, and that they are not to mix on terms of equality with the people of the countries in which they sojourn. Now, sir, I am confident that I can demonstrate that this is not the sense of any prophecy which is part of Holy Writ. For it is an undoubted fact that in the United States of America, Jewish citizens do possess all the privileges possessed by Christian citizens. Therefore, if the prophecies mean that the Jews shall never, during their wanderings, be admitted by other nations to equal participation of political rights, the prophecies are false. But the prophecies are certainly not false. Therefore, their meaning cannot be that which is attributed to them by my honorable friend. Another objection which has been made to this motion is that the Jews look forward to the coming of a great deliverer, to their return to Palestine, to the rebuilding of their temple, to the revival of their ancient worship, and that therefore they will always consider England not their country, but merely as their place of exile. But surely, sir, it would be the grossest ignorance of human nature to imagine that the anticipation of an event, which is to happen at some time altogether indefinite, of an event which has been vainly expected during many centuries, of an event which even those who confidently expect that it will happen do not confidently expect that they or their children or their grandchildren will see, can ever occupy the minds of men to such a degree as to make them regardless of what is near and present and certain. Indeed, Christians, as well as Jews, believe that the existing order of things will come to an end. Many Christians believe that Jesus will visibly reign on earth during 1,000 years. Expositors of prophecy have gone so far as to fix the year when the millennial period is to commence. The prevailing opinion, I think, in favor of the year 1866, but, according to some commentators, the time is close at hand. Are we to exclude all millennials from Parliament and office on the ground that they are impatiently looking forward to the miraculous monarchy which is to supersede the present dynasty and the present constitution of England, and that therefore they cannot be heartily loyal to King William? In one important point, sir, my honourable friend, the member for the University of Oxford must acknowledge that the Jewish religion is of all erroneous religions the least mischievous. There is not the slightest chance that the Jewish religion will spread. The Jew does not wish to make proselytes. He may be said to reject them. He thinks it almost culpable in one who does not belong to his race to presume to belong to his religion. It is therefore not strange that a conversion from Christianity to Judaism should be a rarer occurrence than a total eclipse of the sun. There was one distinguished convert in the last century, Lord George Gordon, and the history of his conversion deserves to be remembered. For if ever there was a proselyte of whom a proselytizing sect would have been proud, it was Lord George, not only because he was a man of high birth and rank, not only because he had been a member of the legislature, but also because he had been distinguished by the intolerance, nay, the ferocity, of his zeal for his own form of Christianity. But was he allowed into the synagogue? Was he even welcome to it? No, sir. He was coldly and reluctantly permitted to share the reproach and suffering of the chosen people, but he was sternly shut out from their privileges. He underwent the painful rite which their law enjoins, but when, on his deathbed, he begged hard to be buried among them according to their ceremonial, he was told that his request could not be granted. I understand that cry of "Here." It reminds me that one of the arguments against this motion is that the Jews are an unsocial people, that they draw close to each other and stand aloof from strangers. Really, sir, it is amusing to compare the manner in which the question of Catholic emancipation was argued formerly by some gentlemen with the manner in which the question of Jew emancipation is argued by the same gentlemen now. When the question was about the Catholic emancipation, the cry was, "See how restless, how versatile, how encroaching, how insinuating is the spirit of the Church of Rome. See how her priests compress earth and sea to make one proselyte, how indefatigably they toil, how attentively they study the weak and strong parts of every character, how skillfully they employ literature, arts, sciences, as engines for the propagation of their faith. You will find them in every religion and under every disguise, collating manuscripts in Bodleian, fixing telescopes in the observatory of Peking, teaching the use of the plow and the spinning wheel to the savages of Paraguay. Will you give people to the members of a church so busy, so aggressive, so insatiable? Well, now the question is about people who never try to seduce any stranger to join them, and who do not wish anybody to be of their faith who is not also of their blood. And now you exclaim, will you give power to the members of a sect which remains sullenly apart from the other sects, which does not invite any, which hardly even admits neophytes? The truth is that bigotry will never want a pretense. Whatever the sect be which it is proposed to tolerate, the peculiarities of that sect will, for the time, be pronounced by intolerant men to be the most odious and dangerous that can be conceived. Another charge has been brought against the Jews, not by my honourable friend the member for the University of Oxford, he has too much learning, too much good feeling to make such a charge, but by the honourable member for Oldham, who has, I am sorry to see, quitted his place. The honourable member for Oldham tells us that the Jews are naturally a mean race, a sordid race, a money-getting race, that they are averse to all honourable callings, that they neither sow nor reap, they have neither flocks nor herds, that usury is the only pursuit for which they are fit, that they are destitute of all elevated and amiable sentiments. Such, sir, has in every age been the reasoning of bigots. They never fail to plead in justification of persecution the vices which persecution has engendered. England has been to the Jews less than half a country, and we revile them because they do not feel for England more than a half patriotism. We treat them as slaves, and wonder that they do not regard us as brethren. We drive them to mean occupations, and then reproach them for not embracing honourable professions. We long forbade them to possess land, and we complained that they chiefly occupy themselves in trade. We shut them out from all the paths of ambition, and then we despise them for taking refuge in avarice. During many ages we have, in all our dealings with them, abused our immense superiority of force, and then we are disgusted because they have recourse to that cunning which is the natural and universal defense of the weak against the violence of the strong. But were they always a mere money-changing, money-getting, money-hoarding race? Nobody knows better than my honourable friend, the member for the University of Oxford, that there is nothing in their national character which unfits them for the highest duties of citizens. He knows that, in the infancy of civilization, when our island was as savage as New Guinea, when letters and arts were still unknown to Athens, when scarcely a thatched hut stood on what was afterwards the site of Rome, this contemned people had their fenced cities and cedar palaces, their splendid temple, their fleet of merchant ships, their schools of sacred learning, their great statesmen and soldiers, their natural philosophers, their historians and their poets. What nation ever contended more manfully against overwhelming odds for its independence and religion? What nation ever, in its last agonies, gave such signal proofs of what may be accomplished by a brave despair? And if, in the course of many centuries, the oppressed descendants of warriors and sages have degenerated from the qualities of their fathers, if, while excluded from the blessing of law, and bowed down under the yoke of slavery, they had contracted some of the vices of outlaws and of slaves, shall we consider this as matter of reproach to them? Shall we not rather consider it as matter of shame and remorse to ourselves? Let us do justice to them. Let us open to them the door of the House of Commons. Let us open to them every career in which ability and energy can be displayed. Till we have done this, let us not presume to say that there is no genius among the countrymen of Isaiah, no heroism among the descendants of the Maccabees. Sir, in supporting the motion of my honourable friend, I am, I firmly believe, supporting the honour and the interests of the Christian religion. I should think that I insulted that religion if I said that it cannot stand unaided by intolerant laws. Without such laws it was established, and without such laws it may be maintained. It triumphed over the superstitions of the most refined and of the most savage nations, over the graceful mythology of Greece and the bloody idolatry of the northern forests. It prevailed over the power and policy of the Roman Empire. It tamed the barbarians by whom that empire was overthrown. But all these victories were gained not by the help of intolerance, but in spite of the oppression of intolerance. The whole history of Christianity proves that she has little indeed to fear from persecution as a foe, but much to fear from persecution as an ally. May she long continue to bless our country with her benignant influence, strong in her sublime philosophy, strong in her spotless morality, strong in those internal and external evidences to which the most powerful and comprehensive of human intellects have yielded assent, the last solace of those who have outlived every earthly hope, the last restraint of those who are raised above every earthly fear. But let not us, mistaking her character and her interests, fight the battle of truth with the weapons of error, and endeavor to support by oppression that religion which first taught the human race the great lesson of universal charity.